is alcohol and some cotton swabs, which look like this. Okay. The alcohol is in a sunscreen bottle that's kind of the perfect size for taking with me. I don't know if you can judge how big that is, but it's pretty small. Okay. My hands aren't the biggest hands. Okay, it's about 3.5 inches across, maybe. But it's pretty small and light. And it's filled with alcohol. And what you do, of course, you dress your wound. You kind of dress up your wound by putting alcohol on a pad, and then you clean around your wound, around it. Then you kind of dab. You want to just gently dab the wound first, then clean around it to make sure everything is sterile. Then what you do is you take the dry pads and you wrap it with, I use athletic tape wrap. This isn't very sterile, to be honest. I need some new stuff, but in any case, I've been taking this for a long time. I rarely ever get injured, so it's not really a huge deal to me, but in any case, that's something that I always make sure that I have in case I have a real problem. And that all goes in here with the floss and the alcohol. That all goes in there with the other stuff too on the outside of the bag. So we have a rope here that's tied to there. This rope can actually be kind of used for other kinds of things if I need to use the rope. I could continue to hang this bag. This bag originally had a buckle on it. It broke. Okay, so I wouldn't recommend buying whatever this was, this Coleman bag. I wouldn't recommend buying this for bicycling purposes. This doesn't seem very strong either. But in any case, that's my first aid bag with some shampoo and some dental floss and some other kinds of things that you would use for just kind of everyday things that you need to use it for. And that goes right in the main pocket of my backpack. This is kind of a camel pack. And now for the good stuff. For the bike, we have a little flat kit, and that consists of this bag. We have these scabs. They're really great patches, absolutely astounding patches. They have failed me before, but usually they work pretty well. I do not like these little aluminum things that they use, or steel or whatever, to kind of roughen up patches, so that you can have a rough surface to put the patches on. I don't really like that at all. I wish I had sandpaper in there. I should probably get some. Anyway, but that is what it is. And then these wonderful patches. And then I've snuck a little $5 bill in there. So if I get robbed or whatever, I have some emergency money. Okay, which is very nice. It's very useful. There's not really a time when you have to use that every day, but once in a while you'll run into an emergency, and it's really nice to have 5. That could be a 10 or a 20 if I was rich. But I'm not that rich. So that all goes right in here, and this little piece goes right into the front of this, like so. Now these are markers. I use these. You can see how reflective they are with the light of the camera. They're very reflective. It's just Post-its. It's just orange Post-its, and they are very, very useful to mark where your flat is when you get a flat. Okay, but sometimes we get pinch flats. So I use 2 tire levels. I always use 2 tire levels because I'll put them both in, and then I'll put one on the spoke, and then I'll pump the other one out. Now, some tires are very, very tough to work with. And you really need both of these. Other tires, you'll pop one in and it'll be enough. It'll come right off. So that is what. But sometimes levers break, so we have a third one, just in case one of those breaks when I'm trying to put. We have a CO2 puncture thing. Okay, it punctures the CO2, and then when you loosen it back up, it releases the pressure to fill up your tire. And I always carry electrical tape, usually more than this, but this fits right in here. And finally, I have a multi-tool. Now, what's great about this, here's a life hack for you. What's great about this is you can actually use it as a wrench by punching out that. And then you have a little 3/4 wrench, or you can have different sizes because you can put this in like there. So you have different sizes of wrenches you can use, which is very nice. Okay, even go really little and have a little tiny wrench. Okay, so it's nice to be able to use it. Of course, use it as a wrench. You just put this right on the bolt, and it can, it can twist the bolt like that. So that's that. And then of course this has a spoke wrench. I don't know if you can see it, but there's two different sizes, a size on each side of spoke wrench, and of course it's a chain tool as well. So I can use it as a chain tool. Okay, it's a very good tool for that. It's a great multi-tool. It has it has a 4, 5, and a 6. Okay, and those are very good to have with you. And that's that. It all fits up in this. Okay, but sometimes, of course, we do bust an inner tube by pinch flat or whatever. So we have a spare inner tube. All right, bust a valve. These are nice because they have what's called removable valve cores. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. But anyways, it has a removable valve core which allows me to put slime in it at some time. Okay, and that goes in the main part again. And then the next thing, we have slime. We have slime. Now we usually don't carry this except for very long rides, where it's possible that I might bust one of my slimed inner tubes or Bont Ranger or whatever kind of tire sealant. If I bust one of those inner tubes, then I'll take a spare and put this into the spare. But that's pretty rare, and if you want to save money, you would buy in bulk, but you would get one of these bottles and put some into one of these bottles for extra long rides, like 100-mile rides where you're expecting to ride on glass, and where you might be riding, for example, lower pressure for whatever reason, and you might wind up pinching your tire. Well, if you pinch flat, then you might run out of this in your tire, or it might completely just fail and never catch. So you want to have that with you. And then finally have a reversible this kind of pump. This pump goes both ways. It's a hand pump. It's not the lightest in the world. It's also not the cheapest. I don't remember how much it was, but it was like, I think $25 or $30 or something. So it's not too cheap, but it works pretty well. And the best thing about it is it has a gauge. Okay, you won't be able to see it too well with this, but it does have a gauge. And that is great to have on the road. It allows me to know how much tire pressure I'm really putting in, which helps because usually you put in not enough, but of course you wouldn't want to somehow put in too much. So this goes on the side here. And this all fits very well, very nicely into my backpack. Sometimes I use a different backpack for this, an actual real backpack. Now I usually have this little thing. Okay, this is an adapter, which will work if I don't have my pump, and if I'm using like a gas station pump or something, this will adapt to the inner tube. And I also usually carry a few extra links of my size chain, which right now is an 8-speed, just in case I break. Because sometimes what happens is you get your chain caught either in the wheel or in the front of the bike, in the front chain rings or whatever. And what happens is it'll bunch up a little bit, and it'll bend a whole kind of a section about this big. it'll bend it all at the same time. And so it's nice to have a spare amount of this, the same size chain, obviously, that I have in real life. So on the bike already. So I usually have this, and it's already kind of broken in there. And sometimes I'll carry a spare master link if I can afford to. And what do you know? Now, I don't know if this will work with my current bike, but I have a spare valve core. Okay, so if a common thing that can happen is these valves can get broken, and what happens is you can actually see this one's kind of bent. You kind of bend it in like that on purpose, right? And then sometimes it gets stuck like that. That's not really bent, but you can bend these sometimes, and when you bend them, what happens is very bad. Okay, because what happens, focus camera, it's not focusing. It will not focus. In any case, what happens is when it bends, it eventually will break, and once this part breaks off here, then you'll bust out your inner tube, but you only need a valve core. So I have a spare valve core, which sounds crazy, but it's not crazy, believe me. What happened is I popped a tire, and eventually you'll pop an inner tube by whatever happens, and I'll keep the valve cores because, you know, that's something else that can be the termination of my, and then I have my key hooked in here, the termination of my actual stuff. And so finally what I have is I have a couple electronics I usually take with me. I usually take my my smartphone and my iPod, and so these are really nice to have. This helps recharge the smartphone, and I'll take an iPod cable for my iPod if I really feel like I'm going to run out of power. Okay, and these are called Pocket Juice. These actually, this brand does not work too well. I would rather have a different one. But in any case, their capacity is somewhat limited, and they don't last. They haven't lasted me too long, and they're already kind of dying faster than they should. But in any case, but yeah, these are pretty nice. And then this goes to my rear light. The light on the back of my bike has a rechargeable battery, and so this is very nice because when that rechargeable battery runs out, I can whip out one of these battery chargers and plug it into this and charge the light, which is nice because then I can extend the life of my light. I could do that with my front light too, but I usually run lithium batteries on there, and those lithium batteries are really awesome. They'll last about 2 or 3 times longer than alkaline with usage, but you can use them in more interesting circumstances. Alkaline reactions slow down when it gets cold. Lithium doesn't slow down until it gets very, very cold. So when it's 20 degrees outside, the lithium batteries perform much better on the lights. And the other thing, and these are AA lithiums. They also come in AAA and whatnot else. And the other thing that's very nice is they're lighter. They're physically lighter. So I don't know if you're a weight weenie, but I do like lighter materials on my bike, and so it's nice to have light batteries in the flashlight. So when it rolls around in there, it doesn't bother me as much. So lithium batteries are awesome to have in your headlight. But anyways, my tail light is what I use this for, to recharge it when it runs out of power. So I usually carry these two things. That's about it for what I carry with me. That's kind of like, I guess, a cyclist's EDC. And this is the first video I've ever made, so please, let's not be haters. I probably only have 5 views, but or 1 view. But in any case, we'll leave it at that. Okay. But thank you for watching. I'm gonna have an introduction video at some other time. So